Sleep and Cognition. Here's a quote by John Locke. The good educator insists on exercise, play, and plentiful sleep, the great cordial of nature. That's a quote from John Locke, 1632 to 1704. Education seems to have taken on a life of its own. Educators and educational theorists advocate for wildly differing educational methods and some educational goals in the interest of academic grooming, have created a system of learning that is as generic and linear as those created for automation. In a lesson where content is introduced and analyzed in detail for several subjects, one after another, very little foundation is created for future learning. Such methods fail to create the conditions for consolidation and integration of memory. The more we take learning away from our natural rhythms, including sleep and repetition, the less likely we are to learn effectively. These are tenets posited by brain and cognition researchers, as well as educationist Rudolf Steiner. In his lectures published in the book Education for Adolescents, Rudolf Steiner advises teachers to adapt the content of lessons to the lives of students. In order for education to be successful, he says it must be based on a fundamental understanding of the human being. Following this directive, Waldorf teachers keenly observe their students for the effects of their teaching. Teaching, observing the effects, and making new efforts could take a lifetime and would likely elicit the mixed results of trial and error. Steiner also explained that learning does not produce an exact reproduction of what was taught. How then does a teacher comprehend the effects of his or her teaching? Luckily, Steiner offered guidance for the monumental task of gleaning and working with the understanding of the human being in order to teach. He provided many indications with which to hone observational skills and thereby teach more effectively. One such indication is the rhythm of the basic lesson, the first day of which goes like this: provide a physical experience, recapitulate the main points, stop, no discussion, questions, or postulation. Allow the lesson to rest, and that night the student will naturally give the experience over to the processes of sleep. Steiner says that we are extremely active during sleep and that our waking events actually develop further during sleep. This is in accordance with the findings of Robert Stickgold, Harvard Medical School Assistant Professor of Psychiatry, in his research brief entitled New Reasons to Sleep on It. Stickgold posits that the first night after an experience, the process of memory consolidation starts. He says, quote, so there is a process whereby memories normally wash out of the brain unless some other process nails them down. My suspicion is that sleep is one of those things that does the nailing down, unquote. On the second day of Steiner's suggested presentation, the teacher can entertain questions and conversation pertaining to the topic. Students are guided to reflect on the prior day's lesson. This could be in the form of learning natural scientific laws or in speculation and drawing of conclusions. This is the step where cognition is employed. Steiner states that moving on to another lesson without sleep and contemplation negatively affects the student's learning. Stickgold corroborates this view. In his research, he finds that if material is presented again on the following day, dream reports support that the subject is being represented during sleep. Stickgold comments that it is as if, quote, the brain needs time to decide whether or not to deal with something in sleep, unquote. If it is only presented once, dream images do not support that the subject is being worked on during sleep. It is as if the dreaming is prompted by the need to learn, unquote. Steiner's two-day rhythm, in which sleep has a central role, and his suggestion to teach in main lesson blocks where a subject is experienced daily for 3 to 4 weeks, both nourish education by creating conditions that support memory consolidation. But what happens when the lesson block is over? Educators who are unfamiliar with both Steiner's and Stickgold's work might be concerned that students' learning might detrimentally be affected by not having constant review of old material as it was presented. This is one of the arguments for year-round schooling. Interestingly, Stickgold finds that his subjects who had significant and extended prior experience, not necessarily recent, with the material report more visual dream representations. He states that for these subjects, being newly exposed to the material did not result in a mere replay of the memories, but that they, quote, transformed them by associating them with old images and memories, unquote. A common example of planning for this aspect of cognition can be noted in the sequence of learning experienced by children at a Waldorf school. The first and second graders may play on a seesaw. As with their lessons that day, this experience accompanies them during sleep consciousness. In grade 3, they might explore this phenomenon in a formal lesson on weights, going out to the playground and experimenting with the balancing of masses. Still later, this becomes the foundation for the study of physics. In each circumstance, there was experience, sleep, and the next level of experience. In every step of this sequence, sleep is an overnight condition met, and in addition to this rhythm, there is the longer pattern of weeks or even years of sleeping, resting, and forgetting between the stages of subject presentation. Stickgold's ongoing work is providing clues to how the brain uses cortical memory traces to reactivate memory and use them in the conscious mind to accommodate and enrich new perceptions. This is the benefit that Waldorf students receive from the careful timing and coverage of their school experiences.